is David Wiedemeyer, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself, and we're going to get right into it. Tell the
Well,
people
thanks
about
for
you, Dave.
having me, Frank. You know, not much to tell other than just I'm an ordinary guy trying to chase the dream, you know what I mean? Um, Two beautiful daughters, a beautiful wife. I've managed to somehow create a halfway decent life for my family um, by working hard and starting from the bottom and rising my way up. So, nobody's special here, but I'm glad you've set a platform like this, Frank, for people like us to be heard and to have some really great content and talk about really whatever comes to mind and whatever the people want to listen to. So I'm thrilled to be on your show and your podcast, and I look forward to talking about some of the things that you've got to shoot at me.
Thank you, Dave, for the compliments, and yeah, that's just been my entire dream, is to create something like this that is a freedom of speech platform for the everyday guy. And if I may say, would it be too far for me to compliment you and say you are an embodiment of the American dream?
Well, I appreciate that. I'm nowhere near complete with my dream, um, but I sure am working hard for it, and none of it's come for free, and
No.
none of it's come with a lot of sweat equity and blood. So I've got a lot more blood to shed and a lot more sweat to sweat until I can really be confident that I'm the full embodiment. But I appreciate the compliment.
Thank you. So let's hop right into it. They're trying to roll back certain laws, and I do believe you know which laws I'm talking about, uh, that are effectively affecting the female population of the U.S. And they are definitely pushing this agenda 100%. They are saying that it is unjustifiable, unconstitutional murder um, to get abortions. And why I stand with definite mixed feelings on that, I would definitely like to hear your points of view on it as well.
So this is a topic that I have had some discussion with individuals on in the past, and obviously it's a very touchy subject, so it's hard to dive into it, especially with people that maybe you care about or family, friends that you're close with. This is always a subject you typically don't want to talk about, right? Especially if you are close with them, right? So, this is a great opportunity to maybe discuss, how we feel without really having any bias over it.
Right.
Like as I stated before, I have some very liberal values and visions, and agree with a lot of their side. I also have some very conservative visions and mindset too that I feel like I kind of buffer myself in the middle.
Right.
I'm not a registered independent, but I'm almost acting as one. So with this type of issue and I guess area of politics when it comes to women's rights and more importantly being pro-life or pro-choice, that's something that um, I have a little bit more of a left-sided opinion on, just based on my beliefs. Obviously, a human life is sacred, and it's incredibly um, rare, and I think that it should be nurtured and cared for. But on the flip side, um, you're also affecting a human life, right? Being the woman. So, my view on this is that I support the idea that a woman has the right to decide whether she is fit to bear a life. Now, with that being said, I feel like there should be a time limit or a term limit that should be presented before it gets too late. statements that are made that are very true, with the fact that a heartbeat does start very soon after conception, right? That the baby or the fetus or whatever you want to call it has a consciousness, right? Or is a living thing, right? And a living human being, right? I do feel, however, that there are certain times where that should still be a viable option for the health of the mother, whether it's the mental health or the physical health or just the overall health, that she should be able to decide if that's something that she needs to go through with, especially if it's out of some kind of incest or rape or some kind of unwanted act. So I've had this conversation before, and I was asked, David, so you're telling me, you're like, what, halfway through their second trimester, halfway through their first trimester, and that I don't know if I'm even comfortable answering, but I can tell you now that I do not agree at any point if a child, due to modern technology, can be birthed prematurely and still survive on its own. I do not think that any point in that time that child or that mother should have the ability to take that life. So I guess my point is there comes a time in a fetus in a development where, even though it is premature, it still has enough ability to sustain itself in the world, albeit maybe on a ventilator or some oxygen or whatnot. It still can survive outside of the womb, and in any time period during that era, like that point of its growth, I feel like that should be an area where we don't have to make the decision, right? So you'll never deal with a woman aborting a baby in the third trimester at all. So I guess to summarize, I'm pro-choice to a certain extent, but I'm pro-life as well. But like I said, I think there needs to be some boundaries set. But I do feel like there is a way that both sides of the political field, I should say, can come to an agreement where they feel like it's understandable on both areas.
I couldn't agree more. As you stated, I'm from both halves. I come from a nature versus nurture logic. That nurture being exactly how I was raised, the nature being the knowledge that I've amassed over the years of living and being here. And so, with my nurture, I was raised that if you are man or woman enough to lay down and make a baby, then you should raise that baby. With my nature side, I've been raised that with reading, with knowledge, which ingesting more of your day-to-day lives and everyday things that actually occur and happen, as you stated and touched on, rape. That's something that a lot of people shy away from. They don't want to even mention the R word. They don't want to say it. They don't want to put it out there. They don't want it to be known. But rape, incest, these are on any unwanted actions. These are all things that happen, and I definitely 100% respect the woman's right to refuse at any point during the stage, because no woman should have any choice robbed of them. So, say a guy and a girl are getting hot and heavy, and the girl believes in the beginning that that's what she wants, and at any point in that, if she's just like, I'm not comfortable, that guy should respect that off top. He should say no, because let's say they get this rolled back. Now, that young woman or older woman or, whatever stage of life they're in, they have to look into that child's eyes, and they have to see that act and that night or that day or that time frame over and over again. And there's going to be nothing but bitterness and resentment towards that child. And they're never going to see a child for a child if they are forced to keep this child. And then let's say they put the child in the system. Now this child's gone off into the system to which people are going to believe that that's a better chance for the kids. And the statistics, especially in the U.S., there's so many children that age out of the system that it's not even funny. Like, there's not people readying themselves to adopt daily. Excuse me. There's not even people that are clearing the adoption process. So you got all these unwanted children, or these, I won't say unwanted children, but you got all these children in need that are getting caught up in the process, that are getting, trapped in paperwork and weighed down, and they're not getting to homes. They're going from foster home to foster home. They're going from shelter to shelter. And now this kid is now a full-grown adult, and we're increasing the homeless situation here in the U.S., and it's just, I digress. To get back to the topic, I definitely don't believe in pro-choice, as you stated, with stipulation. I don't believe in, like you say, if that baby's able to come into this world preemie and it's able to survive, especially like you said with the state of medical technology and medicine, the state that we have today, if that child's able to live on its own, no, I do not believe in an abortion. But if an act, just a travesty has occurred to a woman, and they don't feel comfortable in their soul, like there's something innate in them and they don't feel comfortable bringing a child into this world, I do not hold that against them to make that choice, to make that conscious choice not to do so.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I don't know if I can say, that the majority of kids in the system are probably due to parents that didn't have the option to abort. I think a lot of the kids in the system just have to do with parents that suck, realistically,
Yeah.
that just don't, want to give up their partying, or, not to say that there's not a lot of legitimate reasons, but, I don't know how that would change if abortion got permanently banned, or I'm sure there would be an increase, right? But I don't know how much it would actually affect, foster children and children that don't have parents, because right now, as of right now, for the most part, even if you have to travel to a different state, you can still get an abortion. But I guess that's to be determined, right?
Right.
Bottom line, there's a fine line between this. There's not there should not be a one-sided decision on this. There should be a one-size-fits-all,
Right.
where both type of people with both types of political, moral, ethical, religious views should be able to, I guess, have their cake and eat it too, right? I mean, we shouldn't have to pick a side.
No.
You should say, hey, you can do this if you want to.
Right.
But here's the stipulations. Here's the caveat. If you want to do this, you need to make the quick, swift decision to do it
Correct.
immediately.
Yes.
Okay? After a certain time period, it won't be allowed. It won't be tolerated. And if you do that and find out, there should be some very heavy capital punishment.
Right.
So again, to kind of close out on this, I think a woman needs to have a choice.
Yes.
She does. If you want her to be able to excel in society and be able to give her fair share to this world and her life and have meaning, we need to make sure that certain unfortunate circumstances don't end that ability in one human's life that's already alive. But on the flip side, they need to know that if that ability is given to them, it needs to be swift, it needs to be quick, it needs to be immediate, as to not have a developed human or a body with a consciousness be able to suffer, right? I mean, it's just not how we do things. So,
I mean, what if I seen a meme and I'm not gonna take credit for this forethought, but I seen a meme, and like that would be the end of the male population in the U.S. I feel personally, and the meme went as such. It stated, "What if masturbation became illegal? Because we were killing not one, but potentially not. It didn't say like there was a full consciousness, but it said we were killing potentially millions and millions of children. What if one of those would have gone on to become the doctor that cured cancer, or cured HIV, or just cured any
So
or been
that
innovative?"
that's I can see the humor behind that.
I found it funny, but at the same time, yeah, I was like, yeah,
That's not something that I would be able to get behind on if this was, if, and I know this is just a meme, but if that was a serious topic,
right,
it would obviously be comical. But you're talking even on a scientific level.
right,
Um, there's no living human element to a sperm cell. It's just there's not a human element. It is a seed, if you will,
right,
that plants a tree.
right,
So the seed is an inanimate object. It is not a life-bearing object, if you will. It is a life-giving object, I guess you could say, but it's a part of the puzzle, not the actual puzzle.
facts.
And if you're to the point where a child is developed, where they have feet, heartbeat, eyes, they're moving around, swimming around.
I mean, it swims.
That's the puzzle. That's the puzzle, right? The puzzle is complete.
Right.
It might not be formed or grown to the size, but it's complete.
Yeah.
All of the pieces are put together.
Facts.
A sperm cell is just a piece. It's the light that turns on so you can see the board and start building it.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, like I said, I read that, and I found it comical, and I was just like, I get that. I understand the humor and the kind of flipping of positions on that. So yeah, I was like, I get it.
Valid point.
Yeah, and I was like, they really found a way to drive that one home, so to speak. Like I was like, yeah, I get it. It's murder. I was like, what are we watching? Like, is this like episode 4 of Star Wars? Like, I heard a million voices cry out all at once, and then suddenly they were silenced. I was like, oh, it's dark.
Oh my god. Well then. What's next?
But yeah. Oh man. It's good stuff. And that is, yeah, that's where we're at with that as far as that topic goes. So, what do you think about the state of Earth's environment currently?
Well, there's a lot that we could discuss.
Like, as far as, do you think global warming is a serious threat?
Well, honestly, it all depends on really what your belief is on the type of earth we're on. I don't necessarily know if I would believe some of the things that we're being told about global warming. Not to saying that the things that we're doing are causing harm to our breathable air. I think that's totally viable.
Right.
But, some things that I see just cause me to go, how how is this something that is all of a sudden just popping up now because we have more carbon emissions and blah, 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 this and that, when we, and again, this is all hearsay too, but I mean, if you look at historical data from hundreds and hundreds of years ago before the Industrial Revolution,
Right.
I mean, you have extreme heats, you have extreme cold, right? So you have extreme temperature differences, just like we have now.
Right.
We break heat records every year. We break cold records every single year. So when it comes to is the Earth getting warmer, right? Well, I mean, who knows? We hear those things from government officials. We hear those things from propaganda spewing platforms that we have no idea on a personal level of just people like me and you if there's even any accuracy to it, right? So we're left to
people having
talk about it.
agendas? No.
No. We're left to kind of make our own assumption of it based on, I guess, what we can find out. But, I mean, I'm not just going to go to Google and figure out, and trust what they say. So, honestly, Frank, I can tell you that, in the here and now, me being not a scientist,
Right.
Looking at temperatures, daily temperatures, looking at the temperature it was today 130 years ago. First of all, how do you know that?
Right.
What do we just like rewind? You know what I mean? So, what are we looking at? Maybe historical records, right? So I'm assuming maybe it was written down somewhere before there was any type of technological note keeping or data entry. And you can find temperatures from 200 years ago that match today's temperature, right? So I know global warming is a lot more than just, is it hot or is it cold out? But, show me where it's deteriorating the ozone layer. Show me where it's causing the polar ice caps to melt any more than they were melting 300 years ago and then regenerating in other regions of colder climate.
Like, I don't know, man, because like I'm sure it was strived, I'm sure it was written down, like you said, maybe one or two guys in the whole grand scheme, because there's, at this point in time, there's 8 billion plus human beings on the planet. So some time ago, I'm sure there was significantly less, hundreds of years ago and whatnot. But with that being stated, circumstances changed, technology has changed. Like you say, the industrial age came about and whatnot. So again, as you stated, I'm no scientist, but I feel that the Earth just goes through these certain hikes.
Phases.
Yeah, they go through these phases in warm and cold. I don't think one thing is inadvertently causing the next. Like there's a lot of people that have all these end of time theories, like, the world is coming to an end, and one day one of them will be right. Like that's just that somebody's got to be right, and one day somebody's going to be right. But for the time being, it's like thousands of civilizations in the past have seen the end of days. Like Pompeii, 1,000,000,000% seen the end of days. Like it was Armageddon for them. Like they were just like, the world's coming to an end, and for them they were right. But
so no doubt, some of the things we do produce some type of chemical in the air or carbon footprint in the air. Things obviously that aren't healthy for you and I to breathe in the human body. I mean, we're carbon based, so we are made to degenerate from the time we're born. And things like, the stuff that spews out of the smokestack that's not filtered, or stuff that spews out of a vehicle that's not properly maintained. Of course, it's going to hurt you personally, but, go 35,000 feet up in the air where you're closer to the ozone layer that's being damaged.
Right.
And take a sample of that air and tell me what the active amount of chemical or carbon residue that would cause causes global warming is going to be in that air. And I'd be hard pressed to see if there's any. Go to the top of Pikes Peak, 14,000 feet in Colorado, and tell me if that air that has a very limited amount of oxygen is contaminated in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
When I listen to people talk about greenhouse gases and stuff going into the air and causing global warming, well, then give me a test of the air closer to the top. Yeah, the stuff down here is, you're breathing it in. It causes smog. Smog is a real thing, okay?
Right.
You can visually see it in certain cities with high traffic and high emissions. But realistically, I mean, the Earth is a natural filtration system with plants. So, I mean, you're not cutting enough trees. And here's the thing, whatever I say is based on my findings, right? So I don't claim to be a professional at this. I don't claim to be accurate. I don't claim to make statements that are fact, but more or less what I believe to be true based on my knowledge. So let me just be clear with that. But realistically, if we had a major problem like that, we would already be starting to notice the differences. And I guess you could say, some would argue, well, we are, because the ice is melting, the waters are rising, the temperatures are this and that, record fires, blah, blah, blah. So listen, as we become more advanced civilization, more things get recognized. So it's easier to take your phone out and record a video of a fire. A lot easier than it was 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So my point is the things that are happening now very well could have been happening at the same rate and interval 300 years ago. We just didn't know about it because we didn't have the means to express it to the masses.
Yeah.
Okay. So the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Well, if the wheel's been squeaking but nobody's hearing it or around to hear it, it's still a squeaking wheel. But now if everybody's around to record that squeaky wheel or take a picture of it or write a blog about it or post on social media of how, my God, this wheel is just squeaking so loud, it's going to get the attention, right? And if now there's a billion people taking a picture of a billion squeaky wheels, somebody's going to come up and say, why all of a sudden are all these wheels starting to squeak? They've never squeaked before, but all of a sudden now we're hearing coming from, nowhere. These wheels are all squeaking. Well, guys, the wheel's been squeaking for a billion years. Yeah. You just never knew about it. Yeah. So that's kind of my take on global warming. Has this been just a cycle, like you said, Frank, where just the Earth is just going and doing its thing? But guess what? We just didn't have the means or the knowledge or the ability to just track it.
Right.
And now we do, but it's coming off to us as something that's brand new or changing because of things that we've done. So, people are tying their agenda to it.
Right. South America, to be specific, South America. So I had a Mexican American friend in California, and he was telling me about his grandpa. And his grandpa, who is a Mexican immigrant, legally he made his immigration from Mexico, the proper channels and all that, and became an American citizen and raised his family over here in the States. His son is first generation Mexican American, and so on and so forth. But I make that statement so I can tell you this story. He was telling me about how his grandpa watches the news, and he laughs all the time watching the news, especially the world news. He watches it, and this is back in circa 2016, 2015. He watches the news, and he laughed. He found it very humorous. And his grandpa said that they're making all these reports and they're making all of these headlines like the cartel is so bad, like things are getting so bad out there, like things are horrible, like things are becoming worse and worse and worse and worse and worse by the second.
Meanwhile, they've always been, right?
That's what he's like. Things have been like this in Mexico, in I'm sure in other countries, but he says Mexico specifically, things have been like that since he was a child. He was like, they've always been
Sure.
that bad, like
Sure.
equally that bad. Like he's like, they're not any worse or any less. He's like, they've always been that bad. That's how things were,
Yep.
and he just accepted how life was while he was in Mexico. Like he's like, that's just the way of life, and he's like, these people are reporting and they're trying to, just like what you said, they're trying to reinvent the wheel, make it seem like it's brand new and whatnot, but it's something that's always been going on. It's always been happening, and now all of a sudden it's new. And he said he always just got a chuckle out of that.
Yep. I agree.
But yeah. And as you were stating, like with the advances of technology, we move information now at light speeds. Google maybe, like you say, even it has its agendas from time to time. But you have a computer that back in the day would have taken up an entire room at its first conception, that is now right smack in the palm of our hands, and we can look up anything we want. We can,
True.
we can get in touch with anybody
Good point.
from any point or corner in the world, and yeah.
Great points.
So speaking about our world and our environmental issues and whatnot, and what is this that they keep stating about resources? I notice there's always a resource agenda being pushed, that we're the fossil fuels and we need to find new energy sources and whatnot, and America itself is like one of the richest countries, just resources alone. What's your take on that?
Well, again, the world is driven by one thing, and we all know what that one thing is, because it makes the world go round. What is that?
Money, for sure.
So if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. And that's a term that I use even in my business. If it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. So if everything was going well and people wanted for nothing, it wouldn't make money. So in their eyes, it might just not make sense. So there's always got to be something that needs to go away temporarily, right? So let me give you an example on a very layman's term, so your viewers can understand me, that might not really grasp what conversation we're having. Let's talk about Taco Bell for a second.
Yeah.
Taco Bell, for many, many years, has had the Mexican pizza.
Right.
And for many years, that was a fan favorite. It did very well. But all of a sudden, they decided to take it off of their menu. And the reason is because it didn't make money for them anymore, or as much as it did.
Right.
So it didn't make sense.
Right.
So they keep it off, and that's a resource that you don't have available when you are in the market for Mexican pizza anymore. You cannot get it.
For sure.
The way your need or want or desire for that Mexican pizza doesn't go away. You still want it. You just deal with not being able to get it. So here's what happens. We come out with other agendas that make money to replenish the resource that we are lacking.
Right.
And it might not be the best replacement, but it'll do because it makes money. But here's what happens. They let that go away, and they create a problem, if you will, where people that love that product can't get it. And then what happens? they bring it back for a limited time only.
Right.
And here's what happens. They bring it back and people rush to it. They flock to it in hordes so much that it in effect creates a depletion of it again.
Right.
Because they are getting so much so fast that they're selling out of it.
Right.
So at that point, it's making them a lot of money and it's making sense. But it's also giving them the same outcome as it did when they didn't even have it, because they deplete themselves from it.
Right.
So I say that partly because I ran into that situation with my daughter a couple days ago, but more importantly, because it's easy for somebody to understand.
Right.
When you talk about infant formula, when you talk about fuel, when you talk about electricity, when you talk about any of these massive resources that we need to live our daily lives, if it doesn't make money, massive money, it doesn't make sense. When things get depleted and the demand doesn't go away, the cost for the product or the service goes up.
Right.
And it starts making them more money and it makes them more sense. So there's never going to be a time in the history of life until we evolve to a higher level of intelligence, or we elevate ourselves spiritually, that we are going to have a life without a higher power, government power, or money power, depleting a resource purposely for financial gains. So we have the ability to have whatever we want in an unlimited and an abundant supply, whether it is electricity, whether it is baby formula, whether it is Mexican pizza, whether it is fuel, fossil fuel, natural fuel, solar, nuclear, doesn't matter. But there will always be a throttling of that, unfortunately, again, until we can all elevate ourselves to a species that doesn't rely on resources anymore, right? Once we don't have to rely on resources to sustain life is when that won't be an issue anymore, but we're so far in our infancy of life that that is not going to be something we'll ever be able to, unfortunately, witness, you and I at least.
Right. Now, speaking of infancy of life and getting my power situation here, because I do not want this to get cut and us be so in-depth in here.
Yeah, you'd have to book me again, and you know I'm not cheap.
You're not at all. So, being so in-depth and should I say being so infatuated with our advancements, our intelligence, so to speak, do you believe that we are the only single life form in the known cosmos with a higher form of intelligence?
So I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm really trying to figure out what we are and what we're living on. And there's a lot of things that I see and I read that conflict with some of my other beliefs of maybe other life. Because I believe that one thing sounds like it could very be possible, and not just a theoretical. And those things sometimes conflict with some of the other things that I believe in, like maybe life out there, right? But if we truly have a space, if we truly have a universe, if we truly have a galaxy outside of where we live, then I do believe that there is intelligent life out there. And I think that they are pretty much just evolved species of what we are now.
I can get behind that.
If you look at, and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but if you look at the advancements in the amount of time that we have, you can kind of correlate that evolution to understanding why, hypothetically, theoretically, we could be a very primitive form of life that hasn't, like I said in the previous segment, evolved to a higher level of adaptation, right? When you look at potential other life forms, the majority of them are silicon-based, where they do not deteriorate, they do not require oxygen to live, they do not require food or water as a resource for survival. They communicate on a different wavelength, and I can absolutely see the human race, what we call ourselves, evolving to a state of consciousness and awareness where our body goes through and our civilization goes through the evolutionary change to become what we would think some of these other life forms are, which is pretty crazy to think about. It's not just, this life form here, they're duds, they just stay mindless little cockroaches like the humans, or this species is a lizard species and they're all scaly and blah, 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 right? I think there's different stages of life in the universe, if that's what you believe in, there's a universe.
For sure.
And it all depends on what stage of life. Are they a living species that has been around for 100,000 years, 100 million years, or 100 billion years, right? And even though they say the universe is only 60 billion years old.
Right.
But my point is I think it's very plausible that any other life out there started out just like us.
Oh, yeah. I definitely believe we're super, like, if not near infinitely behind the curve on, like, as you put it, our evolutionary status. Like, I feel like...
Well, yeah, I mean, you if you think about, if you want to try to make it in a point where we can understand it, where I can, where other people can understand it, we look at the Neanderthal species back in, the days of old,
right,
as a very undeveloped primitive species, right? The timelines are the only thing that are different versus where we are now versus what we think the Neanderthals and the people that were Ogo living in caves were.
Right.
And it's almost like, an advanced life form, an advanced civilization and species looks at us as the Neanderthal, if you will, right?
Right.
So it's just a different timeline, right? So a living species is here, and to them, we're here.
Right.
But, if you're talking about us, we're here, and the Neanderthals are here, so it's really the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just a different timeline, right?
100%.
So.
Yeah, and then we're sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we're finna get like super deep into the rabbit hole. So if you guys want to take the blue pill, now's definitely your time to do so. So when we talk about stuff like this, we have to go back to one of the oldest living written or inscribed biblical texts or religions, and that's the Anunnaki with the Sumerians. And they gave in great text and in great detail their whole, what they surmised that the gods or elder beings were. And it gets in depth. Like, their description or their depiction of the gods are not so different from me and you. Like, and as you put it, like, they were just a super evolved form of us. And then in biblical written text, they go as far as to state that God decided to make us in his image. So once
Well,
again,
yeah,
it's
well, they had several gods.
right.
The Sumerians.
Oh yeah.
Um, um, and they kind of had that. When you look at like Hercules and stuff like that, where they had the god of death, the god of life and earth and stuff like that.
Right.
But you can't help but wonder where that came from, right? Because it's very easy for someone now to fabricate an imagination because you look at children and their imagination, right? We both have children, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's just incredible how the things they come up with, but they don't just come up with it because it just snaps in their head as an idea. It's something they've seen or heard or listened to, and they've compartmentalized and piled together these experiences or things that they've seen or witnessed.
Right.
Right. A child, a 5-year-old kid, is not just going to think about a picture of a unicorn if they've never seen one.
Right.
Because they won't know what it is, so they'll never be able to think of a unicorn.
Right.
You know what I mean? So going back to that, you see a lot of inscriptions of their gods and a lot of the way that they look and some of the things that they're wearing and how they're acting. Back then, there was no technology that we know of, right? So you could safely assume that there would be no way for them to fabricate something mythical if they didn't even know what mythical meant.
Right.
Right, so now we know mythical means something that's not real. So you could say, David, draw me a mythical creature. And I could probably draw you something that's like crazy.
Right.
Like nobody's ever seen before with whatever, right? With like light bulbs in their eyeballs or whatever, right? But back then, there was no term for mythical. There wasn't, back then they weren't saying, hey, draw me up something fake. Because they were still in their growth and exploration phase in their very, very new civilization based on what we know.
Right.
So, kind of getting to my point here, the scriptures and the things that they say and show were not because they were sitting around a campfire one night on their pyramid or their stones saying, hey, let's draw something crazy, right? Back then, the things that you see that they wrote and have pictures of, the only thing I can think of, and the only thing that makes sense to me, Frank, is that they were copying and writing things that they were seeing.
Right.
So they're gods. They saw something. There was an entity there or something in front of them moving, a tangible, if you will, creature or entity that they could see in a 3-dimensional form that caused them to draw and notate what they were seeing, right? They weren't just smoking opium whoa. Because again, anything that you can fabricate in your head as far as imagination is based on things that you've seen or heard or listened to or smelled.
Right.
So if that's true, which I believe it is, and it just makes sense, then it would be the same back then. And anything that they're going to come up with is because of something that they've tasted or heard or seen or smelled or witnessed. Which leads me to believe that even back then there was civilizations and species and aliens, if you will, that were coming here and visiting us.
Right.
And the Anunnaki themselves could have very well been an ancient, highly intelligent civilization that were, presented here to leave that kind of information for us to develop.
Right.
So that's my take on that.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I agree 100% on that. As you stated, we both have kids, and the stuff he tells me is based off the knowledge that he has at this current stage in his life. He doesn't tell me anything beyond his scope. He doesn't tell me anything beyond his realm of experience. Like if he's witnessed it, be it TV, be it a video game, be it a movie, be it at school, be it at home. If he's witnessed it, he can conceive it in his mind, and he can formulate something and regurgitate that into what his perception of it is. Like, okay, his imagination takes shape, and it's like, oh, he's like, I seen a butterfly that turned into a lizard today, and it's like, well, where is this coming? Where is this coming from? And then it's like, oh, well, yeah, this butterfly turned into a lizard. And I was like, where is this coming from? And maybe he was watching the National Geographic Channel and he seen a flying lizard, or maybe he seen an actual flying lizard in real life. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that makes some sense. No, that wasn't a butterfly. That was just a lizard that can glide or whatever, you know. But like us, so many hundreds of thousand years ago, 1,000 years ago, we seen something and we perceived something, but we just couldn't formulate, or we just didn't have the right words to articulate what it was we were perceiving. We just knew it was bigger than us. We knew it was bigger than anything we ever experienced, and it was just like, this is greater than us. So this is a God.
Yeah, of course, that's what they attributed to. But you're talking about how many thousands of years ago. And they've got pictures and etchings of a human with the face of an eagle or a bird. I mean, tell your kid right now who's never seen a picture of a human with an eagle or a face of a bird to draw something crazy and creative.
Right.
They would never. You could put every kid on this planet, and if they've never seen that, they're never going to draw that.
Never.
Right? And if they did, it would be purely coincidental. But the thing is you're seeing these drawings like on a scale of just immenseness, right? It's not just one drawing or one etching into a stone, right? Or one hieroglyph, right?
Right.
So this is like something that's happening in different areas with different ages and back then. And so it's not like they all collaborated and said, hey, okay, let's this guy drew a really cool picture of a dude with an eagle face, so let's all just draw that and pray to it, right? They see things, and either they were highly intelligent or highly unintelligent just because they have not evolved. And either way, you could argue that they drew that because they were intelligent enough to give us knowledge on what they were seeing based on the tools they had, or they were completely unintelligent and they were just drawing what they saw.
Right. But either way, it gives credit to it. It's just like, we seen this. We need you guys to know that we seen.
Absolutely, it gives credit no matter what.
We seen a being.
Credit to them drawing it.
Yeah, we seen a being that was like us, but at the same time was 1,000,000,000% not like us. It was something more than us.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I can only wish that I had the ability to witness that or go back just for an hour or two. Would you sit back in the corner and watch?
But how would you return to this point still you and not profoundly changed? Because that therein lies the fine line between faith and knowledge. Because right now you believe something, and that's faith, and then you witness it, and it's going to be almost insanity for you to come back and pretend like everything's okay, or like whenever you have a debate with someone or a conversation with someone, that you can even entertain their points of view, because it's like, I know for a fact that you're wrong. Like, I know what really happened. I've seen it.
You're a witch.
You're a witch. There it is. And then you get burned at the stake for it, because it's like, yeah, man.
Yep. Which is where it all started, the propaganda and the hiding things. But anyways, looks like we're running out of time.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to hit the hay, so maybe we should set up another time. I'd love to be back on your podcast, and I'd love to talk more about some other stuff that I know you had on your agenda to talk about.
For sure, 100%. So we'll just call this part 1.
Absolutely. Let me know. I'd be happy to come on your show anytime you want, Frank. It's been a real blast, and it's been a blessing. And I'm really proud that I was able to be one of your firsts.
I'm glad that you were as well, David. Thank you, and I can't wait to have you back on. I look forward to it, and I'm sure my fans do as well.
Great. Thank you so much. You have a good night.
Thank you. You as well.